Good evening. Welcome to About East Brunswick with the Mayor. I'm David Weil, Director of the Library, which operates Cable Channel 8 as the municipal access channel for East Brunswick. Tonight's topic is planning and growth. And now it is my pleasure to turn the program over to your host for this evening, Mayor Fox.
Thank you, David, and this is About East Brunswick. I hope that over the next few months we'll be able to present informative programs about our community and about the region in which it exists. I want to especially thank our Pioneer Studio panel tonight. You folks responded to the invitation to come and be part of this, and I appreciate that very much. I hope that you will find it useful, and I'm sure that the questions that you have probably are questions that are in the minds of hundreds of people in our community. So we're going to keep this very informal. I hope that you'll participate. I hope that you'll ask a lot of questions. Bill Tanner is going to begin our program with a presentation, discussion of the state of growth in our community, some of the planning steps that led up to where we are. But before he does that, I'd like to tell you that Bill has been employed by the Township of East Brunswick since 1978. He joined us as a township engineer at that time. He is a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. For the past year and a half, he has been director of the Department of Planning and Community Development, and that is the hat that he's wearing tonight, although Bill wears many hats in his job as engineer and planner. So, Bill, why don't we get started with the presentation?
All right. I think for the beginning of the presentation, we should refer to the map that's right behind us. And generally, what it is a snapshot in time. The time being the winter of 1975. This is a planner's map. Special. The colors are actually planner's colors. The yellow are residential areas, green open space, blue public, or what is known as quasi-public, which would be schools, churches, etc. The red commercial areas, as Route 18 running up the side of the map, and brown would be industrial. The white color that's dispersed through the rest of the map is undeveloped vacant land or farmland. As I said, this is sometime in the middle of the winter of 1985, and since this has been was done, we have three more parcels that no longer are vacant in the sense that there's a development application that's been approved on them. In general, though, it should be noted that the west side of the turnpike, this being the turnpike running here, is for the most part vacant. The remainder of the vacant land is more or less in the center of town, and one large area down on the south end of town. As Bert Bush would be fond of saying, this tail end here, which no one believes is in East Brunswick, actually is East Brunswick, and this very large area here is the James Burke Park, which we will touch on some of the reasons why we have the James Burke Park down in that area. But just for general background purposes, this is what the state of East Brunswick looked like in 1985 during the winter. Mostly developed, mostly residential, and it is, for the most part, preserved on the west side of the turnpike. One other point would be this heavy dark line here represents an area to this side of the line and to this side that will not be sewered, and therefore there will be no development of any intensity in any of these areas. Now, if I can go up to some of the other charts we brought along. This is another map that we put together as part of a planning study that was done, began last year, and has been continued, and we update it on a monthly, quarterly basis. Every single developable parcel as of last year was given a number, and we took the acreage off the tax map, and we then assigned development values to it as to what the zoning is. The green area shown here is the so-called town green, because that's what the amendment to the master plan was called, and that's what This is the area that people refer to when they refer to the town green. This area was zoned in 1978 to densities higher than the residential areas around them. And what we mean by that is that this is the area that you see the townhouses. The townhouses are generally built on smaller lots, are generally built closer together, and generally are either condominium ownership or, as in the case of U.S. homes here, Timber Hollow is a fee simple, same as the single-family homes that surround it. The way the master plan was laid out, there are single-family homes on Ruse Lane to the south, this being Ruse Lane, Cranberry Road running through the picture this way, and we tried to buffer the surrounding residential areas with lower density townhouses and condominiums, with the higher densities occurring in the center, away from the existing single family and on the roads that could handle the development, which would be the major arterials, Riders Lane and Cranberry Road. More on Riders Lane after we get over to this other large area right here, which is known as the Reeve Avenue section of town. The Reeve Avenue section of town, as part of the rezoning of the town center, we rezoned the Reeve Avenue area of town. This is now at 1 unit for every 2 acres. The average in this area is about 1 unit for, 5 units for every acre in this particular area right here. So we traded, in essence, density here and placed it here, and for very good reasons, we feel. This area here is extremely sensitive from an environmental standpoint. The drinking water supply of central New Jersey, as I believe everybody has heard, is generally taken from the aquifers that underlie the ground. This particular area here has several what are known as outcrop areas, where the sands are directly connected to the surface, and as such, the ponding that goes out that you might see in the area, which Fresh Ponds Road and Hardenberg Lane, these areas here, those ponds may be directly connected to the sands below. In some cases, it's perched water, so it's not in every single pond you see. But generally, the wet areas out here are directly connected to the Farrington and Old Bridge sands and supply part of the drinking water for East Brunswick as well as for a lot of other communities in central New Jersey. So in order to preserve this, since an aquifer needs an area where the water, when it comes down and rains, lands on the ground and percolates or moves through the ground down into the aquifer, if you cover that over with roof, road, parking lots, and other such impervious cover that doesn't allow the water to pass through it, you actually decrease the amount of water getting into the aquifer. And as we pull out of the aquifer and not replace, we can actually start to drain the aquifer. And so it's very important to us, as well as central New Jersey, to keep that area free from impervious cover. A similar situation does not exist in this area. The sands are quite a distance below the ground here. They are not hydraulically connected. I'm using a lot of engineering terms, and I tend to because I'm an engineer, but it just means that these aren't directly connected. The water doesn't go directly into the aquifer in this particular area of town. As part of doing that study to change the zoning, the RP zone, the designation up top, RP, Rural Preservation, is as I said, a 1 unit to a 2 acre parcel area. At the original master plan goal, or a master plan designation for this area, was R3, or approximately 3 units to the acre. There would have been about 5,600 units constructed. At the RP designation, 780. And these are maximum numbers. There's a very good possibility even that many will not be constructed. It's based on 2 units for every the 1,950 acres that are remaining that are totally undeveloped. Underneath are 2 town green zones. In 1978, when the zoning was put in place, there were 625 original acres with a maximum of 4,643 units that could be built in that green area on the previous map. There was an original zoning that was R2, R3, which is either 2 or 3 units to the acre, which would have yielded about 1,190 units. So the increase just in this area was about 3,400 units. But if you take what we didn't build here and added to what would be built here, there's actually a net decrease in the amount of units being built in the township because of the zoning change. That was in 1978. In 1985, after we've had some approvals and we know where we stand, and there are several parcels that left to be developed, we are now at a maximum of 3,690 units. We're 700 units below what we had thought. We still have the same base of 1,190. We're now only 2,500 units above, but when you add, again, the numbers together, the net decrease is now 2,388 units. So the move, which everybody feels is intensified development in town, has not really intensified it in town. It's intensified it in an area, but purposely so, and part of it is that we now have a decrease in the amount of units overall in the township. Second chart here is just the maximum total, and what it shows is as the developments were approved, what has happened. The amount of maximum units drops over the past several years. In January, from January to August, 300 units more or less were dropped because as development comes in, they can't develop at the numbers that we project. There are various constraints, one of them being the Mount Laurel settlement, which has caused them, the builders, some reduction in their ability to produce units. The second chart here, second group, deals directly with the town green itself. Again, more numbers. Essentially, the same numbers we've been talking about. The total number of units that have been approved in the town green to date are 2,533 units. We've constructed approximately 1,400, 1,385. The total units approved but not yet occupied, 1,148. So the development potential, and this is where the numbers come from, based upon the remainder of the land at its present zoning, is 1,124 units in addition to this, which gives us the 3,657. When we did the Town Green Master Plan, we projected a range, and we felt that it would come in at the average, 3,659. And at present, we're already below that projection. So we planned, we knew, and we are actually below. We were conservative at what we're arriving at. That doesn't quite solve what some people see as our problem, which is people see the building in the center of town. They say we're building too fast, we're exploding. Terms are utilized a lot. The planning board heard those terms and has anticipated that this might be a problem and instituted with the major developments in the center of town, the club, Bradgate, and Leisure Tech. They go by various names. This is Hovnanian, Summerhill Meadows, and Oak Park. Anticipating that this could be a problem, even though we knew that we would be getting around 3,600 units, still you don't want to see 3,600 units next week. So over a period of 3 years, 85, 86, and 87, each of the developments have been phased. Each one is allowed a certain number of units. In the case of the club, only 105 this year. In the case of Bradgate, only 47 this year, and Leisure Tech, only 97. And Bradgate and Leisure Tech probably will not even make these numbers here. They're far behind already. And in each case, each year has its total. And you can see that we're not talking large totals, and the town is not exploding and growing out of control. This only takes into account the town green. But this is the building that people look at and point at and say, this is where the traffic is coming from, which is the major issue that we have to deal with when we deal with development. I would say that 237, even 355 units out in 1987 is not going to generate the type of traffic that we're experiencing, which gets us to a topic that we'll be covering in greater detail at some other point. But the fact that traffic as a function of the development that is going on in town are not as related as people feel they are. One of the reasons why it's so related is you're stuck in a traffic jam watching the building go up, and you tend to think that the two are related. Actually, we have not built all that much in the past several years to generate the type of traffic that we are presently experiencing. What I'd like to do is now back up. The problem with planners is we like large charts. We tend to get carried away. East Brunswick population, 1940 to 1984. Simply showing that in 1940 there was less than 10,000 people here, and in a period between 1950 and 1970, the greatest growth occurred in this township. There were some 28,000 people that moved into town in those 20 years. Those 28,000 people have, since 1980, when we had 37,711 people living in town, according to the census, are now joined by, in 1984, the end of 84, the beginning of 85, we have only an additional 2,000 people that we've brought into town as a result of our development. These numbers are based upon the 1980 census and then the units that were CO'd in 1984. So the traffic is not being generated locally. 2,000 cars don't all go down Cranberry Road. The traffic is being generated from around us, and we will touch on what's going on around us later. But just some other points. The actual population of now versus the 1976 master plan. Some people, you'll hear, well, we're growing faster than the master plan. We're growing much faster than the master plan. This is the 1976 master plan projection, and this is where we are, from 1970 through to 85. Now, the growth has not been as continued and sustained as the 76 master plan envisioned. As a matter of fact, the 76 master plan actually kicked in about here. This was the previous one, the 1970 master plan. In 76, they revised the population estimates downward, and as you can see, we've never really kept pace with what the 1976 or the 70 master plan were saying. A point for what is happening with housing units and school population. One of the problems that every master plan looks at is, besides traffic and water and sewer, we look at school population, since we don't want the school board being caught in a position where all of a sudden they need a new school. An interesting phenomenon is happening not just here in East Brunswick, but in all across the country, and that is, even though our number of housing units continues to grow, the number of school children has been declining since 1970 and has substantially declined since that point, and will continue to decline into the future for another 3 to 4 years, so the experts tell us. Then it will level out and more or less stay constant. This is generally due to, one, the fact that we're not building five-bedroom colonial homes anymore. We're building 1- and 2-bedroom townhouses and condominiums. And also, the family size has shrunk dramatically in the United States and continues to do so. A chart that shows school-age population versus public school, which shows all these children here is the total school-age children population. This is what goes into our schools. The difference here is made up generally of private schools, and there's been a general trend in this area here to increase children going to public schools. This happens to be just in East Brunswick. Again, just some more background. The master plan of 76 had projected that we would be building housing units at approximately this pace, and we would have somewhere in excess of 10,000 units, closing in on about 15,000 units in 1985. In actual fact, we are at about 11,000 units. We are not meeting the 1976 master plan, and we don't want to meet the 1976, but just as a guideline and a benchmark, we are not growing as fast as people feel we are. So where's the traffic coming from? Building permits from 81 through to 84 from the state of New Jersey compiles this on a town-county basis. What we've done is highlighted East Brunswick in blue and then All those towns that are above us in any given year are in red. Those below us are in green. In 1981, when we had only 58 building permits, our surrounding neighbors, North Brunswick, South Brunswick, Saraville, Edison, Monroe, and Old Bridge. Plainsboro doesn't really touch us, but generally has a large impact on us for two reasons. One, the increasing of population in that area, as well as this is the general location of the so-called Route 1 corridor, the Golden Corridor, the Princeton Corridor, where the office space is going up presently. In 1981, there wasn't a town that touched us that didn't exceed us as far as building permits. In 1982, the only town that was below us was South Brunswick and Plainsboro, which we're discounting as for the present time. But all the ones that touched us all exceeded our growth. Again, in 83, it's a little bit more even, but we're still pretty close with everybody. We had 653, but Edison had 1,087 building permits. In 1984, Edison had almost 2,000 building permits issued. And as you can see, again, we're more or less outnumbered by the Reds. And it turns out that we fall pretty much in the center of the area as we do geographically. But as the area around us grows, the jobs are down south of us and to the north of us. And as somebody like Old Bridge grows, the only way Old Bridge can get anywhere to where the jobs are, Princeton, Piscataway, North Brunswick, is through East Brunswick. So 1,796 building permits and 1,792 in Monroe. Again, the only way Monroe gets anywhere is through East Brunswick. And you start seeing the development, a picture of that we are truly the crossroads of the county, and we are suffering as a result. Middlesex County has done some projections. Total Middlesex County. In each category, the light gray is a 1983 number, the dark gray is a year 2000. Population growth. Plainsboro, which is the most obvious example, 7,000 in 1983, 17,002 in year 2000. South Brunswick, 16,000 to 48,000. Old Bridge, 51,000 to 76,000. And they don't have any way of getting out except through East Brunswick. East Brunswick has got growth, 37,000 in 1983 to 44,000 in the year 2000. Generally, around us, everyone is growing. Generally around us, everyone is growing at a faster rate than we are. And unfortunately, generally, the only way you can get from here to there is through East Brunswick. So the traffic being generated is coming from outside the township. It's passing through the township and causing us problems. We are growing, but we're not growing at the rate that our streets are telling us we're growing. So I've told you what our problems are, and I told you we're not really out of control, but still you're sitting in the traffic jam at Ruse, Riders Lane, Cranberry Road, and you're saying, so what? So now we come up to what we're going to do about it. This is our transportation hit list, if you will. Across the center of the road in the green color is the new realigned Riders Lane. As a result of the realigned Riders Lane, we will be abandoning the Cranberry Riders Ruse Lane intersection, constructing a new intersection with Cranberry Road. Riders Lane in this area will be median divided, grass median divided. We'll have one travel lane and a shoulder in each direction with the capability at each of the intersections of expanding to 2 lanes in each direction. This is currently under construction. Our estimate for completion from Summerhill Road through to Dunn's Corner Road, the entire improvement, is end of summer next year. In addition to that, we will be realigning Brunswick Avenue, which is a problem in the mornings, so that it will flow out to Cranberry Road directly. Ruse Lane will be dead-ended at Canterbury. You will not be able to go from Ruse Lane directly onto out to Route 18, but it will be required to come up to Riders Lane and then out to Route 18. Ruse Lane between Cranberry Road and Summerhill Road will become a true neighborhood street. It will not be the collector, the arterial that it is right now. We're moving the arterial into the new Riders Lane. The county will be, if things go the way they should have, will be widening Cranberry Road from the approximate location of Dunham's Corner by the high school down through the existing Ruse Riders Lane intersection, so that we will now have a fully developed, or a fully improved, I should say, cross-section of roadway from Ruse Riders Lane all the way through to Route 18. So we'll be taking care of the flow problems through the center of town. In addition, we will be taking on a program of intersection and roadway improvements such as Cranberry Fern Road. We are presently have the surveying done on this. We've been in contact with the county. We know we can't get a traffic light there until we do, we being the county and the township, do something about the site distances here. We will be working on this in the coming year. The intersection of Fern and Old Stage is a totally township problem, and we will be addressing that in the coming year also, since the surveying work has been done on that. Other intersections, Harts Lane, Milltown Road. The county is presently designing a new intersection there. We have a temporary lighting situation up, but that will be replaced hopefully next year, being that the county will be paying for that improvement, and putting in a full traffic control signal device there that will respond more to the traffic than to the fixed cycle we have there now. Generally, the better traffic signals, if there is no traffic on Harts Lane, you will get no red light on Milltown Road. It's a traffic directly responsive to the traffic volume. Riders Lane from Tisus Lane to Route 1 will be improved. It'll be dualized, grass median. Riders Lane in the vicinity of Sullivan Way will begin pulling away from our residents. A new bridge will be constructed so that the flow from Route 1 down to Riders Lane and Tisus will be drastically improved over what it is now. We will be improving Tisus Lane in conjunction with that to the turnpike, so that a full cross-section of Tisus will continue from Route 18 all the way through to Riders Lane. Route 18 bridge, long talked about, is out to bid and should be awarded tomorrow. They're opening the bids tomorrow, the state of New Jersey, and they've sent around a letter that says on November 21st they will begin constructing that improvement. The first stage is construction of a brand new bridge over the Lawrence Brook. After that's built, they'll transfer traffic to it, and they will refurbish the existing bridge. Then they will open both bridges like the Route 1 bridge over the Raritan River. Other improvements will come about at Narracon Place. There are improvements scheduled for the underpass under the turnpike and Route 18 at Egger Street and McGuire Street. That's already been designed and is down in DOT right now getting approvals. We have plans and have received permission from the state of New Jersey to put a traffic control device at Renee Road. We have not given up on trying to do something with the northbound traffic towards the north, and in some way we need to address that. Currently, the situation at the Edgeboro Road jug handle precludes any real dealing with that. We also have other intersections here. The intersection of Frost and Summerhill is on schedule, and as a matter of fact, I just found out the other day that the warrants for traffic lights have changed, and we may be able to get our traffic light there finally. We're working with Spotswood down on Brunswick Avenue, and these improvements in this area are scheduled for much later in our capital program, which extends out to 1990. We also have an improvement on Hardenberg Lane there, which is by the golf course, and Fern Road by the water tower. So between now and the fall of next year, we hope to have several of these either under construction or finished. Primarily the Riders Lane, which we feel is almost a key to traffic in the center of town.
Okay, thank you, Bill. We've hit some of the high spots on traffic. In a future program, we'll be looking at the detailed designs for the new Riders Lane, for the upper part of Riders Lane, various intersection improvements. All right, at this point, see if you have questions or comments you'd like to make so that we can get the discussion going. Fred?
Okay, well, thanks a lot, I think this is the first time we've seen this much data presented so that we can at least get some idea as to what the development is. Of course, Mr. Tanner, I have to tell you that you do what every good presenter or debater does, is you present the data in such a way as to prove your point. The fact that you showed a chart there that under the old master plan we would have had some 4,000 units and now we're down to 3,000 or whatever. As a practical matter, the Riva Avenue area, being that there's no sewers, it's over an aquifer, we never would have developed to the extent that was in the original zoning. And even if we did it, we wouldn't see the effect in town. So what really the problem is the town center, the town green, where we're seeing the traffic. And you're right, we sit in a traffic jam and we look over and what do we see? Townhouses going up. Your one chart showed 200 houses 1 year, 300 or whatever, but they didn't include Lexington Village, which is now finished, of course, and the Society Hill houses, which added a significant amount of homes. I guess my first question has to do with Lexington Village, which was started in 1978 or 79. But my understanding when that first was approved that there would be a buffer of single-family houses put up between Lexington Village and the existing housing that existed there. That's when Orleans owned the entire area. And I guess when they sold, they put the first 2 or 3 sections up and then they sold to Hovnanian. And this buffer sort of fell away. I was just wondering why we allowed that kind of thing to happen.
Well, let me back up a minute, Fred. I think that in my opinion, it's not true that Riva Avenue would not have developed. If the zoning out there was still at R3, there are plenty of people willing to spend the money to put in the sewer system, to connect to the sewers this side of the turnpike. And I get inquiries almost weekly from various people who ask, is it possible that sewers can go out there? I mean, remember that at R3 we're talking about nearly 6,000 units, and that is economically attractive to a developer to do. So that I just really disagree that Riva Avenue would not have developed. And indeed, if you put sewers in there today, it would develop very rapidly.
Don't you have a 2 or 3 mile connector to get the sewers from Riva Avenue to our current system?
Well, you'd have to, there are various ways to go. There's a trunk line on the other side of the lake that could probably be connected to, or you could come down to the southern part of the township. But the economics of housing development today, particularly in an upscale town where there's upscale development as there is here, you can absorb those kinds of expenses in doing residential development. And the other thing, of course, is that taking it out of the Seward area, demonstrating that it's environmentally sensitive, kept it completely out of our Mount Laurel cases, kept it out of our settlement. Everybody, the courts recognized, the plaintiffs recognized that that land could not be developed. And indeed, the map behind me, this whole area to the south of the dark black line was recognized as environmentally sensitive and not subject, at least on the western side of Fern Road, not subject to intense development. But there's just no question in my mind, anyway, that the Riva Avenue area, had it remained R3, would have developed perhaps by now. Now, on the question of Society Hill, Lexington Village, there is a substantial buffer between Society Hill East and the adjoining residential area, which is Indian Forest. The neighbors in Indian Forest were at the planning board meetings. We put up, not only was there a large open space area, but the developer was required to put up a substantial berm. A berm is a hill, man-made hill, planted extensively. And as far as I know, and in fact, that was the first thing that the developer was required to do, so that what we, open space is sometimes preferable to houses. So I think that those needs were met. Somebody else.
Yes, Mr. Tanner, you talked about the realignment of Riders Lane from Dunham's Corner Road to Summerhill Road, and also that extension from Tice's to US 1. What about the in-between? That is between Tice's Lane and Dunham's Corner Road.
Oh, between Tice's and Dunham's Corner, between Tice's and Milltown, there will be a modified cross-section, and all that means is there will be an improved or widened roadway, but not to the extent that will occur both above Tice's and below Dunham's Corner. And between Milltown and Dunham's Corner, again, there may be something that's done, but it's sometime in the future. Anything that's done in there will be along the improved cross-section rather than a complete widening for several reasons. One, the Turnpike Bridge presents a real problem, and that bridge itself would have to be physically widened to do any real widening. It does no good to do a widening to a bridge and then drop it down to 2 lanes, as we know from practical purposes at Lawrence Brook right now in Riders Lane. And as you travel below that, there are homes on both sides. There just is not the money that needed to purchase all the homes a la the 1950 highway programs, and also the sensitivity of government to people's houses, I think, is a little bit better, a whole lot better than it was in the 50s. We would never try to widen more than just giving a full lane, 12 feet, and an 8-foot shoulder, so that you can get around a turning vehicle, or you can pull off the road in case you're disabled with a flat tire or something. So that the improvements in between are going to be very limited. Mostly at intersections where we can flare the road out, as was done at Milltown Road, has handled the traffic quite well since that's been done. Same thing's happened at Dunham's Corner. The reasons for the widenings where we've done Tice's Lane creates a lot of traffic going towards Route 1. I shouldn't say creates a lot of traffic. Roads don't create traffic, but it funnels a lot of traffic to that part, and there is a break-off so that there is a justification for dropping the road width down. And through the center of town, because of the development in the center of town and because we're putting all of the housing off that road, and we want to be able to create a sense through the center of town of not of being constricted, so we went with the wider road there. But generally the road between the other 2 points will stay same or similar to what it is right now.
And by the way, in conjunction with the Riders Lane realignment, the new Riders Lane, did extensive traffic counts and studies, and the section between Dunham's Corner and Milltown Road particularly works quite well. There is much less traffic there than you would expect, because there are a lot of turning movements going northbound at Dunham's Corner Road, either people turning left to go down to Cranberry Road or Church or Hardenburg or someplace like that, or right to go over to Cranberry Road. And the amount of traffic that's siphoned off in that manner is quite large. And coming southbound, there's an amazing amount of traffic that turns off both at Tice's and at Milltown Road, so that section thus far seems to be the least heavily loaded of that whole system. So that's another reason why we think at most, some relatively minor improvements will be required.
Speaking of Cranberry Road.
Yes.
Could you review again your proposal for the widening of Cranberry Road?
Yes, it's essentially the county's proposal, but they've asked us to participate in it so that we can get it done now instead of 8 or 9 years from now. And what will happen there is from Dunham's Corner Road to approximately Ruse Riders Lane as it exists today, the roadway will be widened and treated in a fashion similar to the way it is by the high school now. That is a median strip with 2 lanes on either side, turning cuts in the islands so that people can get back and forth. And in conjunction with the new Riders Lane construction, the intersection both on the new Riders Lane and on Cranberry Road will be improved, as it will at a couple of the new intersections up there. Civic Center Drive North, which is just by the VFW, and also the drive coming out of U.S. Home, the name of which I forget.
Evergreen Boulevard.
Evergreen Boulevard, which goes into the U-turn lane by residents there. All of that will be improved in conjunction with the construction.
And we need to use township funds for that, or you feel it's important that we use those funds?
Well, we don't have to use township funds. The county's policy is that if you want to wait for full federal funding, you can get on the program, and that takes, from the time you get on to the time that the money can be spent, it takes anywhere from 6 to 10 years. Or if you're willing to acquire the right-of-way necessary, buy the adjacent land that's required, the county will do the construction and pay most of the cost of the project. And that's their offer to every town in the county. And some towns take advantage of it, some don't. I think that we do need to do that improvement now, and that we don't need to do it 5 or 8 or 10 years from now, because it's needed. Now, some people say, well, I mean, gee whiz, they improved Summer Hill Road, and that, there's hardly ever a problem there. I say that's wonderful. I mean, if you remember, if you've been here long enough to remember how Summer Hill Road used to be when it was 2 lanes, very similar to Cranberry Road, very heavily traveled, with a lot of congestion. I think it's just marvelous that it's been improved to the point where there's very seldom a traffic problem there. And I hope that the same thing will happen with Cranberry Road.
Do you
Yes, Chair.
see any options for Route 18 for the lessening of the traffic there? You were saying before, Mr. Tanner, that it's a pretty tight situation over there as far as widening or, actual improvements to the road. But fortunately, when I go to work, I go to the park and ride, so I just take one and hop right into the parking lot. But I watch the people going northbound, and I'm just very glad I'm not with them.
Yeah, well, I'll let Bill talk about some specific possibilities, but I think that Route 18 will become a major problem. It is. It serves most of the South County. Old Bridge, in addition to the growth that it's had already, is going to have about 30,000 people come in with the development of the Olympia and York project, and that, of course, is just Old Bridge. It doesn't address Marlboro and the other town, Freehold, all those towns that are developing where people are having to go north on Route 18. I think unless the state is willing to commit substantial amounts of money to Route 18, that it is going to, unfortunately, going to continue to get worse. I think what our job has got to be is to convince the state to accelerate the improvements to Route 18. But I have to tell you that right now, all the money the state has for improvement to state highways is committed through the year 1992. So that the first year they could schedule substantial improvements to Route 18 is in the year 1993. Bill?
Specifically, there are 2 projects that the state has funded or has proposed funding for. The one is the one I touched on, the doubling of the Lawrence Brook Bridge. The other one is a rehabbing of the Main Street crossover structure, which has had a history of concrete falling off and such. The state reviews that bridge, I think, on a 3-month basis and makes repairs. But in 1990, I believe it is, or 1991, there will be a major redesign and a major contract on that. Other than that, the state has not programmed in any money. And the situation, as you said, is tight on Route 18. It's, in each case, the next stage, the next thing you do on a road with the volumes of Route 18 is overpass. And overpasses are $5 million to $10 million at today's costs on small ones. That kind of dollars, again, is not in the area right now. It's not programmed into any state program. And Whether it will be done in 1993 and beyond is going to be a function of how much the people in this area, the township of East Brunswick, and the various people even to the south start pushing for something to be done on Route 18. It's in our best interest to make sure the state remembers Route 18 is their road, and to our best interest to make sure that people in East Brunswick know it's a state road. We don't have that much control over it. We can try to make improvements on the roads that touch it, that we own and control, but even for us to touch an intersection that has a state road in it requires filing with the state, and they are not likely to approve anything that impacts their road. If it makes ours better and theirs worse, we lose.
All right, how about another growth question?
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, looking at the town center again, we've got to, when this thing gets developed, we need additional sewers. Now, are the developers paying for those sewers, or is the township paying for the installation? I know there was a debate about this, I don't know, a year or two ago, along Cranberry Road. Who ended up paying the additional money for the sewer pipe installation?
Well, ultimately, the homeowners who lived in the town green will pay that, because while the sewer capacity has been installed, the connection fees, hookup fees, have been set to recover the cost. And so everybody who lives there will ultimately pay for it.
Okay, now,
And I just a comment, people often say, well, we ought to get the developers to pay for this, we ought to get the developers to pay for that. It's never the developer who pays for it. It's always the new homeowner who pays for it, because the developer puts the cost of those items right into the price of the home.
Now, under Mount Laurel, I understand that certain of our town green areas were sort of tied in because they are connected with Mount Laurel. Are there any areas in the town green that don't have Mount Laurel development on it, so that if the township might choose in the future, they could change the zoning there?
Well, there are some areas of the town green that were not included in the zoning, and that were not included in the settlement on Mount Laurel, and we're reviewing those now to see which ones we should change the zoning on. Just a brief comment about the Mount Laurel settlement. First thing is, people ask me from time to time, when are the Mount Laurel projects going to go up? And I think they're expecting to see project housing go in someplace. There will be none of that. There are Mount Laurel units already up in the town green, and they're scattered in with the units that are already there. In the newer approvals, the developers have chosen to build them all in one area, but aesthetically, they're going to be very similar to the housing that's there. The people who are buying those units, by the way, are not the urban poor. They're not moving down from Newark or from other places. For the most part, it's early career, to use the popular term, yuppies, people who are professionals, who are early in their careers, and who qualify for the lower moderate income housing. Second point is that the settlement that we made in complete good faith included provisions that were insisted on by the plaintiffs, setting maximum prices and maximum incomes for the low and moderate houses and people. And the net effect of that, as Bill said earlier, is to produce a disincentive for the construction of more units, so that the number of units that we project now is less than before the Mount Laurel settlement. And you know, that I can't say anybody planned that, because we all negotiated in good faith, but that's been the net effect.
Is there any plan to redo the master plan?
There is, the master plan has been reviewed about 3 times since 1976, and there is, the planning board has on its agenda another master plan review. That review probably would get underway in the next couple of months. I have to tell you, though, that as a result of the settlement, in terms of major residential zoning decisions, we are locked in to what we have until 1990. So that significant changes before then would be violating the court order, would be breaking our settlement. And I can't imagine why we'd want to anyway, because I think we're better off now than we were before we settled. Yes?
Over in the Riva Avenue area, I see there's construction right now on Church and on Hardenberg as well. What kind of numbers can we expect from these areas as far as number of housing units and such?
Well, we're looking at a maximum of, in that whole area, of about just under 800 units if everything were built 2 to the acre and so on. The developments that you're talking about, I think one has 28 homes, the other one has in the neighborhood of 20. And they are very expensive houses. Minimum price is about $300,000, and most of them will go for much more than that. In the subdivision off of Hardenberg Lane, some of the lots in there are 7-acre lots, which of course is why we won't realize that maximum number of just under 800, because some of the land has been used up with these very large lots. But those two developments together will produce something like 50 homes.
Bill, could you pinpoint for us on the map again where the units for Mount Laurel housing will appear?
Well, the Mount Laurel settlement, which is what they told me was going to happen. Say good act. The Mount Laurel settlement was on particular parcels. Are actually these parcels right in here, and some parcels. There's one up in here, there's one over here, and there were 2 down here. As the mayor points out, there are Mount Laurel units already built in Society Hill East 2, which is actually called Society Hill East 2. I don't think you could point them out. They're townhouses that are exactly the same as the townhouse next door. They're apartments, condominium apartment type units that are in the same building as other units of that type. The same thing will happen on this one here, and they'll be scattered on this site here, grouped together over here, and Hovnanian is scattering them again on this one. So they're located here, but for the most part, as you drive through, you won't be able to tell them. You won't be able to say, there's a Mount Laurel unit, because the entire point of the settlement and the entire point of what we were doing in East Brunswick was we didn't want people to point at them and say those are Mount Laurel units. We don't want the people put outside the community. They're part of the community, and they should not be wearing some kind of a scarlet letter or something. So we purposely planned to put them and mix them in, and that's the way our settlement reads. That's the way our development has gone. So I would say that as you drive around, I would defy you to find them, because they're there already.
All right, I think we have time for one brief question and one brief answer.
I have one question on the charts, Mr. Tanner, that you put up earlier that showed that our number of units are going to be below the 1976 master plan, and the number of children are going to be below the projection. And I will grant you that people are having smaller families, and we're building somewhat smaller homes, although more of them per acre. But isn't the main reason that the lines, the current projections are below the 1976 projections, where we went through a 5-year period where interest rates were so high that we had no building, and that what's happening today, in fact, is if it had happened from 76 on, we would be at least at the master plan area number?
No. Actually, if we had, what has happened recently is the catch-up has caused us to cause the big feeling that there's a growth spurt going on, which there is to some extent, but not an uncontrolled one. No, the master plan in 76 projected, first of all, based upon numbers that were continuing all the way through that we never could have sustained. They were, in our particular case, we projected what we feel are the maximum number of units that could be built, and they aren't. Already, our projections are already too high. And finally, the school children projections were based upon a declining family size. It's not so much that that's going to rebound. That's going to continue in decline as a general trend throughout the country. And what it showed was number of housing units and children. And those numbers are going to continue to move apart. And I think I've answered all those parts of the question.
Well,
Thank you, Bill.
okay.
I'm afraid we're out of time, Fred, so we're going to have to wrap up. Bill, thank you for your presentation. Thank you, audience, for your participation. I hope that the people who are watching this have found it informative, and I'd like to hear about it if you have or if you haven't. And I'd also be interested in hearing from you about topics for future programs that would be of interest to you. Good night.